Happy Monday, everyone. Hopefully, you had a great Halloween weekend and everybody is safe and sound, and your kids left you some good candy that you could steal out of their bag. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. This is another edition of After Further Review by I Could Be Wrong Sports. I'm going to break down the Sunday action from week 9 and make sense of all of it so that way you know where things stand as we move forward into the rest of the NFL season. So let's start off with the biggest news probably of week 9. Injuries suck. Let's just call that out. I think we all know that. All of us have a favorite player or a favorite team that has been impacted by injuries. Obviously, they just suck, period. As a 49ers fan, I deal with multiple injuries, it seems like, on every single drive. That's what it feels like, anyways. Another 49er went down yesterday. Hopefully, Michael Williams did not tear his ACL, but that is what the 49ers fear. So get well soon to him. In addition to that, get well soon Tucker Kraft for the Green Bay Packers, who unfortunately it's been confirmed he did tear his ACL and is out for the rest of the season. And then, of course, the young phenom Jaden Daniels, quarterback for the Washington Commanders, dislocated his elbow last night on a meaningless drive. I'm not going to question the coach whether he should have been in the game or out of the game. NFL is a little different than college and high school and different than NBA and things like that. So um, I'll leave it at that. Just get well soon. Those are two young guys, Tucker Kraft and Jaden Daniels, that are really exciting. They really make the game more fun to watch, whether you're a fan of their team or not. So get well to them and anyone else that unfortunately was injured yesterday. So. While I have Green Bay on my mind, though, I do want to say that I think the Green Bay Packers fell into a trap yesterday, um, possible trap game. I think it's very possible that they overlooked the Panthers and were looking forward to the Philadelphia game that they have Monday night next week. And it's quite possible that it could have cost them the number 1 seed in the NFC and possibly their division championship in the AFC North. So uh, we'll find out which Green Bay team shows up on Monday night against Philly. Is it the one that has looked dominant at times this year, or is it the one that has lost to Cleveland and now Carolina? Not that Carolina is as bad as they were previous years, but Green Bay still should have handled that game and won by at least a touchdown, in my opinion. Jordan Love kind of reverted back to what we saw the first couple of years of him as a starter. Very questionable decisions. I know one of those plays, he was a fourth down. He was trying to make a play and just threw the ball up there. Kind of can forgive that one. But there was another one where it was a first down, 1st and 10, I believe, and he threw it into, I think, triple, quadruple coverage, whatever it was, and got the ball picked off there. So the Packers, I think they just fell into a trap, but we'll see if they show up against Philly and they don't look very good. Well, then I think that Green Bay might be considered the F word, which no team likes to hear, but they may be considered frauds. So we'll see. Um, Speaking of Philly, Howie Roseman continues to play chess while everyone else in the NFL is playing checkers. He made 3 moves this week to improve the Eagles' defense and gear up for a run at repeating as Super Bowl champions. And you have to believe if their offense can play the way they did when we saw them in week 8, if they can play that way consistently for the rest of the year, they will be the team to beat in the NFC once again. So, Howie Roseman, hats off to you, doing a hell of a job as the GM, and I think all the other GMs around the NFL are trying to figure out how they can be like Howie Roseman, and that's definitely a good thing if you're the guy everybody else is chasing. So kudos to you. I wish the 49ers were making some moves. I know they're kind of strapped a little bit, but they're definitely not keeping up in the arms race with the Philadelphia Eagles. Another team that is repeating their performance from last year, the Bengals. Those are toast. Let's just call it what it is. They've wasted all 9 of their lives and then some. I think we all saw yesterday that exciting end of the game. It was a great game as a football fan. That we love to see games like that. As a Bengals fan, that's just gut wrenching to see your team lose like that again. And then to see the team afterwards, they're a divided team. You see the team afterwards kind of split offense and defense, offensive players just really speaking the truth, which you don't see a lot in the media. I'm sure it happens a lot behind closed doors, but in the media, you really don't see it a lot. So I think that I've been saying this for weeks now. I've been saying it since Joe Burrow went down. I think it's time for the Cincinnati Bengals to blow everything up and start over. I know that their fans probably don't want to hear that, but let's be honest, they're not winning anything with the team that they have. It doesn't matter if you have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson. It doesn't matter because the rest of the defense is terrible. They've given up at least 25 points 16 times since the beginning of 2024. There's no way that you can expect to be a winning franchise when you give up that many points on a consistent basis. Their front office has failed Joe Burrow. They've failed that entire team by putting that defense out there and expecting a different result year after year. And I think it's just time for them to move on. They're wasting excellent quarterback play again. Joe Flacco has been playing elite, I dare say elite quarterback play since he got to Cincinnati. He's been by far their best player since he got there, and it just hasn't changed anything because their defense is so atrocious. So unfortunately for Cincinnati fans, it's time to blow that thing up. Now, the other participant in that crazy game, the Chicago Bipolar Bears, continue to be one of the more exciting teams in the NFL, for good or bad. They continue to be one of the more exciting teams in the NFL, and they really can't decide who they want to be. Do they want to be a team that is consistent and shows improvement like they did during their winning streak and similar to what they did at times yesterday during the game? Or do they want to be the team that came out for most of the game yesterday and just looked like they didn't know what they were doing? So they're still in a learning curve. I think you can say that the Ben Johnson effect is showing more and more every week, which is a good thing for Bears fans. Good thing for Caleb Williams, of course. And they're moving in the right direction, slowly but surely. I think you can also say that the Ben Johnson effect is also showing more and more in Detroit as well. Lions offense has looked pretty pedestrian at times when they play against the average to above average defense for the most part, aside from the one game against Tampa Bay. So I just think that you can see that the loss of Ben Johnson has made them a little more predictable. They've also not utilized their best offensive weapon, Jahmyr Gibbs, enough at times this year. I'll give you a case in point. Yesterday, he had 12 total touches, 9 carries, 3 catches. That's it. That's not enough for a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs. I know you have Montgomery as well. You have your two-headed monster, but Jahmyr Gibbs is not a guy that you can be satisfied with giving the ball 12 times to and be like, yes, we did everything we could to win the game, in my opinion. I think, and again, I say it all the time, we don't live in should land, but Detroit should have rolled over Minnesota yesterday at home. So um, still got to get a little more creative on the offensive side of the ball, Detroit, in my opinion, for us to consider you the team that everybody thought you were coming into the season. On the flip side, Minnesota got a solid performance from JJ McCarthy in his return. Nothing to write home about, but it was solid. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, not a ton of yards, but efficient for the most part. But it was their run game and their defense that dominated the day against Detroit. They had 142 yards on the ground, and they got 5 sacks on defense. And that tells me that they control the offensive line on both sides of the ball throughout the game.
And if they can consistently do that throughout the rest of the season, it'll make the loss of Sam Darnold start to sting a little less. But I still don't think that Minnesota is a Super Bowl contender or a legitimate threat to any of the Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. Sam Darnold plays on one of those teams. And by the way, Sam Darnold, who Minnesota had in the building, is quite possibly playing the best of any quarterback in the NFL right now. I think Seattle, as a team, is quite possibly playing as the best team in the NFC right now, if not the NFL. They play complementary football. All three phases are coached really well. They play hard in all three phases, and they look like a formidable team. The only thing I would say, the only thing that gives me caution is we saw this last year from Sam Darnold with Minnesota. Uh, Took them to a 14-3 record. 14, let's take a step back. Took them to a 14-2 record. Week 18 had a chance to win the number one seed versus Detroit. Did not look very good. Still 14-3, great record going to the playoffs. They play LA, and that game he didn't look much better. So the last two games did leave a bad taste in Minnesota Vikings fans' mouths, I'm sure, and it leads you to believe that, and well, it leads me to think until we see Sam Darnold do it in the playoffs now, as great as you look right now in the regular season, it's not going to mean as much if you don't at least get one or two playoff wins under your belt because we saw this last year and then we saw how it ended. So while Sam Darnold is playing phenomenal and again quite possibly playing the best quarterback of anybody in the NFL right now, we're going to need to see it come wintertime in January and maybe even February if Seattle makes it that far, to say yes, the Sam Darnold experiment in Seattle was 100% a success. That, in my opinion. Um, and then right behind Seattle, right, you got another team that has the same record as them. Technically, they're below them just because of tiebreakers and things like that. But you have the LA Rams in their same division who could also make a claim that they're playing as the best team in the NFC, if not the NFL. Again, the Rams, they blasted New Orleans yesterday. Controlled the game from beginning to end. I think everybody expected that with New Orleans starting a rookie quarterback. But even if they weren't starting a rookie quarterback, I think everybody expected the Rams to do what they did yesterday. Um, Offense is playing at a really, really high level. And I think you could argue the Rams are one bad Sean Payton fourth down play call. I'm sorry, not Sean Payton. Sean McVay. I apologize. The Rams are one bad fourth down play call by Sean McVay against San Francisco and one blocked field goal against Philadelphia from being undefeated right now. So, um, very formidable team, and I expect them to be in the thick of things in the end. And who knows what's going to happen with Stafford as long as he stays healthy. Maybe he takes them back to the Super Bowl and gets another ring and then rides off into the sunset. Very possible. I would hate to see that happen as a Niners fan, but the way they're playing, it's very possible. So Rams are up there as well. And then behind both of those teams in the same division, you have my 49ers who are a mash unit, essentially. Every week it's somebody else. Like I said yesterday, it sounds like Michael Williams may have torn his ACL. He was filling in, if you can, for Nick Bosa, who tore his ACL. So we know the story with the Niners and their injuries, and inexplicably, in spite of all of those injuries, again, they're right behind Seattle and LA at 6-3 overall. They are 6-1 in the NFC, and that includes a win against both Seattle and LA. So, CMC, another great game yesterday, continues to be the engine that drives, or yes, continues to be the engine that drives that offense. Oh my gosh. Shanahan, Robert Saleh, still coaching their asses off this year. And if they can get some help either through the trade or whatever they have to do through a trade to get some help to create a pass rush, and then their offensive stars get back healthy, San Francisco is going to be a team that nobody wants to play in the playoffs just because of their experience, because of Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh combination being back together. Um, they're going to be a team that really nobody wants to face. If the playoffs were to start today, we know they're not, but if the playoffs were to start today, they would be the number 6 seed, and be set to play Seattle in the first round. So long way to go, but if it was to start today, that's where they'd be. In the AFC, if the playoffs were to start today, the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending AFC champions, would be on the outside looking in. They would be at home watching the playoffs like the rest of us. So, currently, again, if the playoffs started today, they'd be the 8th seed, just behind Jacksonville, the Chargers, and Buffalo, all to whom Kansas City has lost to this season. So not only do they have to catch those teams, they have to finish them ahead of those teams, in the event that it comes down to a head-to-head tiebreaker to determine who gets in. So Kansas City is got some work to do. Definitely very unfamiliar territory for Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs for sure. So I have to think, and I think that we have to believe, as football fans, that they'll find their stride down the stretch like they typically do. They'll find a way to make it into the playoffs, and they're gonna be just as difficult to knock out as they always are. Just based off of their championship pedigree and their history. So I don't think the Chiefs are quite dead yet. We're only halfway through the season, but right now they would be out of the playoffs. Uh, I think that the last team that we could probably afford that benefit of the doubt to, like, hey, they're going to get in, they're going to figure it out so confidently, would be the Tom Brady New England Patriots. And I got to say, the Drake May New England Patriots aren't anywhere near the Tom Brady Patriots in it yet. Okay. Not saying that they'll ever be that, but they're not near that. However, they definitely have every reason to believe that their team is poised to be a championship contender for years to come. That they've found their quarterback in Drake May. They have championship pedigree in the coaching staff with Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniel, and they seem to have reinstalled the Patriot way in New England. And that that just we all know how that goes. They just morph as each opponent comes up. You can't really get a beat on them because they change from week to week, and they try to expose their opponent's weaknesses, which they've done a very good job of this year. And New England's going to be one of those teams that if they lose in the first round, no one's really got, other than them probably and their fans, no one's going to go, oh, this was a failure of a season. And if they go to the AFC Championship game, no one's going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they made it that far. They're a really good team, a really young team, and they only look like they're going to get better and better. So. Um, Now, of course, the team that New England has to hold off is the team that beat Kansas City yesterday, and that's the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo, obviously reigning division champions. They have been for the last few years since Tom Brady left. They seem to have cleaned up their defense since their bye week. They got 2 straight wins. Defense has looked pretty good. Biggest game left on the schedule for Buffalo is the game, that second matchup against New England, which most likely will determine who ends up winning that division. But at the end of the day, for Buffalo, doesn't matter if they won yesterday, doesn't matter if they win against New England. What they do in the regular season is really meaningless. It all comes down to what they do in the playoffs, right? Josh Allen is the only quarterback in the Super Bowl era that has won six playoff games or more, but has not been to the Super Bowl. Sean McDermott is one of only three coaches in history to do the same thing. So no matter what happens in the regular season, they can celebrate beating Buffalo yesterday. I'm sorry, beating Kansas City yesterday. We all know that if Buffalo doesn't make it to the Super Bowl, and some might say if they don't win the Super Bowl, their season's a failure. I'm not going to go that far to say if they don't win it, that it's a failure. But if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, then I think Buffalo's just got to look at their season as just, nah, it 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 it's a failure, and there's no other way to look around it. So for Buffalo is they built their team to beat Kansas City, which they've done 5 years in a row in the regular season, haven't done in the playoffs yet. But the AFC is loaded with formidable teams. I mean, you take Denver, for example. Denver sitting at 7-2, showed a lot of moxie yesterday, coming away with the win. They were in a fight all day long on the road in Houston against the tough Houston defense. But Denver ended up making the plays that they needed to make when they needed to make them, come away with the win. And you know they have a championship defense themselves, and if Bo Nix is on point, they're going to be a tough team to knock out in the playoffs. They're going to be one of those teams that, especially if they get home field advantage for a game, or if they end up with the number one seed, and teams have to go to that elevation and play them against that defense. Denver's going to be a very difficult team to deal with in the playoffs. So, again, a lot of teams in the AFC that have a lot going for them. Right below Denver, you got the Chargers. Chargers are sitting at 6-3 in the AFC West. I believe they're the sixth seed in the AFC. They also had a tougher time than expected against what a lot of people perceived as a lesser opponent yesterday. But they made the necessary plays as well to come out on top against Tennessee. I think the biggest question for LA for the Chargers is going to be, can they find a consistent running game? If they can find a consistent running game, then I have to believe that any Jim Harbaugh coached team is also going to be a tough out when the playoffs roll around. Yesterday, Justin Herbert was their leading rusher. You can't have that. So, and then, of course, sitting at the top of the AFC still, even though they lost yesterday, are the surprising Indianapolis Colts, who again lost to Pittsburgh yesterday by giving the ball away 6 times. Uh, Now they have to travel to Germany and play the Falcons on Sunday in what feels like could be a trap game. Maybe yesterday was a trap game for them as well, but I do feel like this Atlanta game feels like it's setting up as a possible trap game because after they play this game, they have their bye week and then they play Kansas City in a big game in the playoff standing, for playoff seeding as well. So it's possible, hopefully not for Indianapolis, but it's possible that, you know, this could be a trap game for them. What they can't do for their own confidence more than anything. Forget the outside noise of what everybody else is saying, obviously. I could be wrong. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. People on TV, they don't, players, they know a little bit about what they're talking about, but they're not in that locker room right now. So they can only go off of their experience. What I do believe is for the Colts' own confidence, they can't allow themselves to look ahead and look forward to that bye week and get some time off and then play in Kansas City and then have a repeat performance of what we saw yesterday against Pittsburgh. Because then the doubters start to get louder, right? All season long, people have been waiting for the New York Giants version of Daniel Jones to show up. And yesterday was really the first time all year that he did. Personally, I think it was just a bad day at the office for the Colts offense. And I think they're going to bounce back. But if they go to Berlin and lay another egg against the Falcons, then, then I think that the doubters have even more ammunition for their argument that Daniel Jones and Indianapolis are a fraud. this season. So I'm not sure yet. I was on the fraud side to start the season, and I started to become a believer after yesterday. I'm kind of on the fence again, so we'll see. And then lastly, I'll wrap it up with this and get out of here. And I'm going to touch on the team that beat the Colts yesterday, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. That proud defense, I don't know where they came from, but they showed up yesterday. Uh, and if they can create pressure and turnovers, I'm not saying six, but if they can create pressure and create some turnovers like they did yesterday versus Indianapolis, they just might be able to ride it out and hold off Baltimore for the AFC North crown. However, that is a giant if. I mean, the biggest if in, that you can think of. And based on what we've seen for the majority of this season, I just find it hard to believe that the Steelers defense will repeat similar performances like that many more times throughout this year. So while they were able to maintain their lead for now, I just want to say that I think the Steelers and their fans' optimism level should be cautious at best. So, so there you have it. That's where things stand in the NFL after further review of Sunday's Week 9 action. I do appreciate you for taking the time to listen. Please don't forget to drop us a like or a comment. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get the content from. And please share with anyone that loves sports and likes to debate. And as always, I will leave you with these two final thoughts. Don't forget that division is a math problem. It should never be a people problem. And until next time, please be kind. It is free unless you are talking to Cowboys fans. Peace.